Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Themes of Kismet by Akinosho, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Prologue, 15 years ago. What kept you guys so long, and what happened to make him return with a smile? Rick asked. He met a cute little girl in the bookshop, and that's why he came back happy from shopping with me for the first time, she said, raising an eyebrow and grinning. A little girl? How did that happen? He doesn't like little girls. He usually said they are annoying, he states. I know, right? He was reading to this little girl in the bookstore, and I saw how much he enjoyed it, so I let him keep at it until her mother showed up. The girl must be something special. Wish I could thank her. Yes, you may want to thank her because on our way back he said, and I quote, "Don't laugh, I'm going to marry that girl when I grow up." His dad chuckled. Did he say that? He asked quizzically. Yep, and I didn't have the heart to tell him he might never see her again. If by some weird coincidence they do meet again, does he understand they would be strangers and might not even recognize or remember each other when they get older? Well, we can let him stay in his fantasy world for now, long as his mood improves. Chapter 2. Eben, 10 years old, 15 years ago. I abruptly jolted awake from a peaceful dream of a calming Saturday afternoon. I shouted out for Mom, but there was no response, just an eerie stillness, so I got out of bed and went searching for her in our small two-bedroom apartment. I found her lying limp and motionless on the kitchen floor. I tried to wake her, but she didn't respond. I then began pushing her hard with all my strength and called loud in her ears, "Mom, wake up!" After my numerous pushes and pulls to wake up her, in no response, I ran to our next-door neighbor, Mama, in fear, screaming for help. Mama always babysit me whenever Mama's working. Mom said she's like a mother to her, so we both call her Mama because she's elderly, and that's what we call motherly elders. Mama responded quickly to my cry for help. As soon as she saw Mom on the floor, she dialed 999. I stood transfixed, watching as the paramedics worked on my mom with frantic energy, their fingers pressing desperately against her fragile skin. I could see the sweat dripping down their gloved hands as they muttered quiet words that stung my ears. Still faint, still faint. Every passing second seemed like an eternity until all too soon they lifted her lifeless body onto the stretcher and raced towards the waiting ambulance. Mama and I followed in its wake, each thought piercing through our minds like bullets as we watched the red and blue lights fade into the night. Dad arrived at the hospital with heavy steps, his shoulders slumped and face pale. He pulled me in for a hug, but the warmth of his embrace couldn't mask the fear that quivered in his voice as he whispered, "Mom will be all right, my princess." My stomach churned with dread, and I knew he was trying to reassure us both. He asked me to wait with Mama and be good. I wordlessly nodded and watched him go with the doctor. The fluorescent lights burned bright in the sterile waiting room. Each second felt like a dagger crushing my chest. I remained quiet and still with Mama waiting for Mom. Hours later, my heart sank when Dad appeared in the doorway. My heart plummeted. His glassy eyes confirmed what I could already feel. Mom was gone. Dad tried to console me as I pleaded to see her one last time. I asked if it was something I had done wrong. His eyes held only understanding and love as he said no and reminded me Mom loved me with her whole being. Tears streaming down my face, I whispered, "I love her too." Every single day I was reminded of my mother's passing in a way that felt like a sharp stab in my chest. I felt as if the loneliness was swallowing me whole, an invisible force wrapping itself around my body, making it harder and harder to move. Even when surrounded by Dad and Mama, it seemed impossible for them to understand the depths of this darkness taking over my life, a crushing weight that made every task feel like an unending struggle. At my mom's funeral, I prayed and wished for the miracle Mom always talked about happening at church. I prayed the miracle would raise her from the dead as she laid in the casket. I prayed and prayed, but Mom laid like she was in a peaceful sleep and would rise soon. It didn't help that strangers walked past crying, none of them understanding the darkness that washed over me like an icy wave. Mama clutched my hand, comforting me, but all I wanted was for Mom to open her eyes so we could leave this place where I stand alone in a desolate land, no matter how much I wished or prayed. Nothing changed. The empty days that followed passed in a blur of loneliness and my cries for my mom. Dad called to tell me that I would be joining him in Lagos, so Mama and I were at the airport waiting to board our flight. Mama slept as we waited to board. I knew she was tired from all the crying and having to look after me. With nothing to do but stare at strangers, I decided to explore the airport. Thoughtlessly, I wandered into a bookstore, a familiar place, something Mom and I did several times. My mom had a love for books. She used to say a book could magically transport you. Right now, I needed that magic to transport me to her. As I looked around, I soon stumbled upon the famous 5 series, books my mom and I enjoyed reading. We loved the mystery and the adventure. With all my strength, I tried to get one from the top shelf, but it was beyond my reach. I felt the presence of someone reaching for the book, a tall, thin boy who handed one of the books to me. Flushing with gratitude, I took it, sat on the floor, and opened the book. I couldn't bring myself to read the book. My mind could only hear my mom's voice as she read it to me many nights ago. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and the boy sat by my side, gently prying the book from my grip. He began to read the story to me, his voice soothing. He told me his name was Noah, and for a moment we just looked at each other in silence. His brown eyes were soft and warm. I nervously wiped away my tears and told him about my mom. He sighed and said, "I'm sorry you lost your mom. I wish there was something I could do to make it better." He rummaged through his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth stone the color of embers. Engraved onto its surface was the single word, strong. As he placed it in my hands, I felt a warm sensation spread throughout my body and knew everything would be all right with Noah by my side. Mama's sudden shout of, "Oh my God, Evan!" shattered the quiet calm of the bookstore. She grabbed my arm tightly, dragging me away from the boy and his warmth. I turned and waved to him. As we rushed towards our flight to board, I felt the weight of the stone burning a hole in my pocket, a tangible reminder of the boy's kindness amidst the chaos. Days later, my life spiraled out of control when Dad said I couldn't stay with him in Lagos, and I had to return to London with Mama without explanation. The shreds of normalcy I clung to were Mama's hugs and the coolness of the stone in my hand. Even as I dreamt of playing with Mom on a faraway beach, I couldn't shake the memory of the kind boy who had read a book to me at the airport in Heathrow. I returned to London with Mama as days turned into weeks. Mama and I got into a rhythm. It soon became clear to me that it was Mama and me now. Dad couldn't stay with me in London, but I talked with him every day, and each time I asked about living with him, he always gave the same answer. "It's best you stay with Mama for your safety. Please be a good princess." Soon enough, I stopped asking, but continued to search the streets of London looking for Noah. It didn't take long for it to dawn on me that I may never see him again. Loneliness, the stone, and reality became my new friends in this world without Mom.